Hello, welcome to Football Geeks podcast. Our guest this week is an artist and football fan whose work and passion have interlocked, spurning some seminal pieces that marry two genres and have drawn interest from icons of football and popular culture alike. It gives me huge pleasure to welcome the wonderful Ben Mosley. Hello, Ben.
Hi, mate. How you doing? Nice to be on the show. Thank you for having me on.
Mate, I'm chuffed to have you on here because I've only discovered your work very recently. I got alerted to it by the Thistles Titans piece and the Norman's Victory and Twin Towers pieces, which are they're fantastic, mate. But we'll go into those in more detail in a sec. So for a youngish man, your work seems very much linked to younger than me, anyway. Should I say? Yeah, your work seems linked into football's past quite a lot. So tell us a little about your football past, your history, who you support, who your favourite players are. And I'm sure this is going to lock in with your art because who you support have a big part on your art story as well, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, football's played a huge part of my life, really. My best mate's my dad, and he's from a small Yorkshire village in Barnsley they call it Cudworth locally. It's Cudworth to everybody else, but if you're from the area, it's Cudworth. He basically was a football manager and managed non-league Baldock Town at the time, which is where I'm from, which is the town that I grew up in. And they were you're talking in the mid-90s, they were Dr. Martin's Premier Division side, which the football pyramid has changed now. But they were two below what you would call League Two, so quite a high level. And obviously, football played a huge part of my upbringing because I used to go around with him around the country, traveling, watching the games with him. And Baldock were a very good side back then, and they had a certain Kevin Phillips that obviously went to play for Watford. He was transferred for quite a small fee, really, in comparison to the quality that he had and the ability he went on to show. So it was football played a huge role in my life growing up, and it all stems from the relationship I have with my dad, really. And being a big Barnsley fan himself, he made sure that I followed that to a certain extent. Taking me to watch Hull City against Barnsley at Oakwell in 1988 was a different setup then. The ground looked very different back then to it does now, and it was still all standing when I went. So I think I had to stand on a beer crate to see over the wall to watch the game. But sadly, we lost 2-0. I can remember losing 2-0, not really understanding why, because Barnsley were higher in the league than Hull City at the time. And I just thought, as a 7-year-old, that if you were higher in the table, you'd win automatically, depending on who you played. So it was a bit of a shock. But since then, that was when Alan Clark was manager, and I've always been a fan ever since. And happy to say that I am the official artist for the football club now, and I've done lots of artwork for Barnsley FC, which is a great honour. Obviously, being a family connection, and obviously the area being a second home to me. Going to see my grandparents when they were alive. So yeah, football's brought a lot for me, and I love painting about it because it brings people together, and the relationship I have with my dad is very important.
Yeah, there's a huge rolling mural that you painted at Barnsley. If you haven't seen it, guys, there's a great video on your site that we'll get we'll drop the details of that in the box at the end, and maybe talk about where they can see that at the end as well. But there's something very typically Yorkshire about standing on a beer crate to watch your football.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say that art and football are part of the same thing. I mean, they're interrelated, I'd say, at least. I mean, enjoyment can be derived from both, but it's subjective, isn't it? Both are creative, and they can either induce delight or rancor in the viewer. So you derive your inspiration from the works, I believe, of Picasso and Matisse, don't you? So what's your art history? Where did you kind of take up art, and what kind of fueled your love of art?
Well, I had a very good. I mean, my mum was very artistic anyway. So my dad was a PE teacher, and my mum was sort of more art based. So I guess it came from her to start with, and then I went to secondary school and had a very good art teacher, Mr. Leonovich. His name was, he's a big Wolves fan. So we always used to talk about football. Barnsley at the time, when we got promoted to the Premier League, when I was in my last year of GCSE, Barnsley and Wolves were head to head to get into the Premier League. And obviously we pipped them, which was great, because I was able to give him some stick about that. But I then went to university and was heavily involved with the football at university, and I was club captain of the university team, and I was sort of in my last year, and I had a very good art teacher who said to me, paint about what you love, you know, and football, he says, why not paint about football? You know, it's tribal, it's got a lot, it means a lot to people, there's a lot of, you know, brings a lot of joy to people's lives. So paint about something you love painting about, which is what I did in my last year. I'd looked at Lowry, and Lowry obviously was an artist that looked at the north of England at Salford, and he had his Walk Into the Match was a very famous painting, and he influenced me a lot. And it was a case of then taking that forward into my last year and painting about a subject that I loved, which was football, and the sort of how it brings people together, and you know, the excellence of the footballers, but also the crowd, and capturing the energy and dynamism of the game. And that's what I started. That's in my last year. I did quite well in that, and fortunately I found a subject that I loved and a style that I loved, and I was able to go on after uni and pursue it as a career. And football was really the only thing for the first few years, football was the only thing I painted about. Didn't paint about anything else. Probably till about 2002. Well, probably for the first 6 years of my career as an artist, football was all I painted about.
Yeah. I mean, say it's a contemporary subject, but it's not contemporary in style, mate. It's very interesting visually to look at, and of course you've got the Marcel goal in your the iconic Barnsley goal that took them up on the final day of the season against Bradford, somewhere in that mural, haven't you?
Yeah. Well, I think I concentrated more on the. I've done a painting of that goal that's in the boardroom at Barnsley Football Club, which is an honour for me for it to be there. But on the mural, I think I concentrated more on the fans invading the pitch and hoisting the players on their shoulders. And I think obviously that was, sadly for me, I couldn't get there because Dad was heavily involved with the non-league football still, and I was too young to go. So I missed that moment actually of seeing Barnsley get to the Premier League in person. But again, obviously being a fan from the south, it wasn't always possible to get there at that time, but obviously it meant the world to see Barnsley in the Premier League at that time, and you know, the town to realise the ambition of getting there. So 27 years I think now since they were there, but still obviously a great memory for all involved with the club.
Yeah, it's like the mural that is like a rolling history. It takes in that was it 1912 Cup win as well. It's
against West Brom. Yeah.
Interesting piece. Now you've collaborated with some huge brands, but I'm going to select the football related ones because it's a football show. We want to stay.
Sure.
So you've collaborated with Wembley Stadium and Man United. So how did those collaborations come about, Ben?
Well, Manchester United came from Gordon Taylor, really. I mean, through Gordon Taylor, the ex-PFA chairman, who was an amazing guy, absolutely had a superb affinity for art. You know, I knew that was very, very into art, and PFA have got an absolutely unbelievable collection of football art that goes through the ages. And I wrote to him as when I came out of university, saying that I was an artist that loved football, and he wrote back to me, and he would always respond, and I've kept in touch with him. And I think there was one time, I mean, we're talking quite a few years ago now, but I had this painting of Manchester United in my car. I'd had a meeting with him, and I just said, look, Gordon, I said, will you be able to help me? And he put me in touch with the club, and I had a meeting with a gentleman called Michael Bolingbroke, who was quite high up at Manchester United, and they sort of commissioned me to do 2 pieces, and it went from there really. So obviously Rooney's overhead kick against Man City was iconic at that time, one of the probably best Premier League goals at that particular junction in time. And then there was a live painting that I did in London, celebrating the careers of Dennis Irwin, Dennis Law, and Peter Schmeichel. So that they were the two paintings I did, and it was obviously a wonderful commission. And you could see why United was so successful with the likes of Sir Alex Ferguson, and how glamorous the club was, and how warm the club was when he was there. And from top to bottom, the club was sparkling, and it was a wonderful collaboration with them, and something that I'll never forget.
Yeah, it's something you don't see, that you don't generally kind of associate with Man United, the warmth of the club, but I suppose to be a footballing establishment of that magnitude for such a period of time, the passion and the heart has got to be at the core, hasn't it? That's integral.
Yeah, they were superb to work with, and for a club as big as that, obviously one of the biggest clubs in the world, if not the biggest. You can see why they're so successful, and it was great. It was a real honour to do it, and talking with some of the legends there. Dennis Law was an absolute gentleman. It was a pleasure to meet him, and talk football with him a little bit. And obviously, he was very complimentary about my painting, which was nice as well.
Amazing, yeah. And you've earned out of your charity, because you a lot of your art goes towards raising money for charity, doesn't it? And I read that you've kind of earned something in the region of £2 million.
Well, yeah, I've done over 10 years. I mean, I've been doing live paintings at big charity dinners now for 10 years, and over that time period, I've raised around that sort of money for various charities through the live painting. But obviously, the live painting is something that I enjoy doing because I love sport and I love the live element of sport. So being able to do something live makes me feel like I'm performing myself. There's a sort of element, you can relate to what's going off to a certain extent, because you're under pressure and you're in the moment. And I guess that's what it's like when you're on the football pitch as a footballer, having to do what you do.
Yeah. I mean, as a consequence of these paintings, your pieces have now found homes in the residence of some of football's great and good. Like you mentioned, Sir Alex, Jose Mourinho as well. He's got one of yours on his wall. Wayne Rooney, Frank Lampard. It must be a huge buzz as like a passionate fan to have your work on the walls of these people, mate.
Well, Frank Lampard particularly is a great one. I mean, he bought a painting of mine, and I've had a chat with Frank on a couple of occasions when I've seen him since, and he's great. He's obviously one of the best English midfield players we've produced over the last 50 years. So I was very, very fortunate that somebody of his caliber has one of my pieces, and it's a great honour that he has. And he's a good guy. He's Frank, a gentleman again, and somebody that I've really enjoyed talking to and had the privilege of talking to when I've been at my live painting events.
Yeah, so, I mean, tell us a bit more about those live paintings. Are you working with the Olympic team for 2024 at the moment? Have you produced something for them recently? Am I right in thinking that, or is that in the pipeline?
Yeah. I'm an artist in residence for Team GB, going to Paris. The Olympic Games. I'll be at Team GB House painting the sort of games from a British perspective. And in 2000, the Olympic Games were in 2021 last time, because obviously the pandemic pushed them a year back. So I was supposed to go to Japan, but obviously only the athletes were really allowed to go. So I did a huge mural on Carnaby Street. Every time Team GB won a medal, I painted about in real time, and the public could come and watch on Carnaby Street. And it was a huge mural that sort of told the story of Team GB's success. And it got a lot of coverage, and the athletes came and saw it in person as well. And it was a really great honour to be able to depict sport and bring people together, bring the Olympics to the public in my style. And I enjoyed every minute of it. It was incredibly passionate project. It took everything out of me to do it, because I had to paint probably 15, 16 hours a day for 19 consecutive days, because we kept winning medals. And obviously, if you got behind on one day, you could end up being, it might have capitulated. So I had to make sure that I got all the medals you know, on that day that we'd won, so that I was ready for the next day. But I loved it. It was probably the greatest project of my life, and obviously being able to show the public what I can do and how passionate I am about sport, and how much sport means to me, and how it brings people together. It's certainly a subject matter worth painting about. And you know, obviously football is my favorite. It's my favorite sport, and you know, the people that I look up to, your Bobby Robsons of the world, who absolutely loved football, and it meant something to them. And you know, I hope that people will see that in my work, how much it means, and how important it is to people's lives with the Euros coming up. And you know, it'll be a few weeks of football fever for sure, won't it?
Yeah, it does. It really does. It consumes a country, doesn't it? When it happens, the Olympics and the major football tournaments, we all become like synergenic in a way. We're all looking in the same direction, all trying to achieve the same thing. I must say, 16 hours painting shift, Matt. That's a long shift. Was there ever a
Yeah,
time you were waking from those small pockets of sleep when you were thinking, please don't win any more medals? It's going to be an extra bit of work for me.
no, well, to be fair, I mean, you know, at the end of the day, the way I looked upon it is that when you look at what the rowers have to go through and what the athletes have to go through to get there, and the hours of dedication and training, and you know, it must be quite lonely in between the Olympics. They're on their own. There isn't much coverage about it in between competitions. They're pretty much, you know, they have their 4 weeks or 3 or 4 weeks when the Olympics happens, and they have to go back and train again. And I just thought, well, you know, they never give up, so I wasn't going to give up either. And that was my motivation, really, to see it through to the end, was that if the Olympians can do it, and they can, you know, be as passionate as they are and dedicated as they are to their craft, then I should do the same. And that's basically what I used to motivate myself to get the mural finished. And it was obviously an honour to represent Team GB. And again, as an artist that paints about sport, there probably isn't a higher honour than that for me. And I'm looking forward to going out to Paris again to capture the paintings from a British perspective. Hopefully, lots of medals again.
Yeah, mirroring that endurance, I suppose, mate, isn't it, really? So, I mean, you're painting. We'll move on. You're painting of the Queen in 2022. It featured on the cover of Hello magazine. It's very iconic. If you see it, you'll know it, because it was out there, wasn't it? It was everywhere, and it's anticipated that it will eventually be entered into the Royal Collection, I believe.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. I wanted it to be, but obviously with the Queen not being here now, that's no longer a reality, really, to be honest. So that painting has got a different trajectory now. Obviously I would have loved to have given it or presented it to Queen, but that's obviously not possible. So the painting has gone down a different path. But obviously it was a wonderful thing to be able to paint about the Queen and be supported by Hello magazine, and have an article about that in the press, and obviously support and paint about one of probably the greatest monarch of our time. And I loved it. I love it. Being a Team GB artist, obviously I'm very much a big fan of the monarchy and what they do for the country. And it was an honor to do that and be asked to do that. And you know, that was probably my best painting in terms of how I had to do it and what I did, and you know, prestige of obviously painting the Queen.
Yeah, right. And going into the murals, how much preparation time goes into the actual mural process? I mean, beforehand, the prep.
It depends. I mean, obviously with the Team GB one, not a lot, because you're obviously painting it in real time. So, you know, you haven't got time to prep. I'm doing it as I go along. So it's a lot of improvisation, a little bit like jazz, if you like.
Yeah.
With the Barnsley one, Barnsley gave me the freedom to do what I wanted to do. I worked very closely with the Oakwell historian David Wood. He's somebody that you might want to talk to at some point, Phil. David, he's got loads of great football stories, and from different times. He's brilliant, is David. He's great, great company, and he sort of helped me with the sort of elements of the football club that I probably wasn't as knowledgeable about to start with. And it's telling a story. It's bringing those facts to life and bringing the sort of Barnsley had a player that played for England, that I wouldn't have known about, and David sort of helped me with that. And then obviously once I got to the 80s, then I was able to sort of take that on and paint about all the things that I knew had happened within the club. But so that again with Barnsley, they gave me the freedom to do what I wanted. Wembley Stadium, the mural I've got there, that was different. I had to sort of plan that first and show them my designs, and before I went into that. But that was obviously a great honour to have 2 murals at the home of football.
Yeah, fantastic, man. So, I mean, that leads us conveniently back into football. So, you're a big Barnsley fan. So, will you be attending any games this season? And what are your hopes and expectations for this coming season? Last year was well, they didn't go down, did they? They stayed up. So,
well, Barnsley were fighting for the playoffs last season, Phil. They were they played against Bolton. And
oh, of course, yeah.
They played against Bolton, and over 2 legs, Bolton obviously just got the better of us. I mean, this season, they've got a new manager now, Darryl Clark. He's come in and he's obviously done very well at clubs at this level, and hopefully he can take Barnsley forward and we can challenge for promotion. I suppose that's what every fan hopes their club can do, whatever level they're playing at, and we just hopefully that he can come in and, he seems really impressive. The interviews he's given have been excellent, very positive. And, let's see. Obviously, as a Barnsley fan in League One, you want to be towards the top end of that league. But it's a very difficult league now with the likes of Birmingham and Huddersfield and Wrexham there and thereabouts. And then you've got your Boltons that are still there. So it's going to be competitive and a high quality league, and let's hope that Barnsley are in there and thereabouts. But yes, I shall be going to games as much as I possibly can. Living in Kent, where I now live, makes it a lot harder in terms of the traveling time. Unfortunately, with the M25, if there's an accident, or there's any kind of delay, it can take you hours to get there. So I'll do as best I can to get to as many games as I possibly can. But obviously, I always love going to Barnsley. It's always special for me to see Oakwell, and I used to love it as a kid, particularly under the floodlights. They used to have a reserve division. I don't know if you remember the Pontins division.
I do.
And I used to love that because you used to be able to go as a kid and watch the reserve play, but you'd also see some real good players coming back from injury. So that was brilliant. I wish they still had that. But yes, I'll be going, and let's see. Let's see what happens. And one thing's for sure, the club always want to be as high as they possibly can. So let's see if we can achieve that.
You're right. It is a quality division. Obviously, being a Birmingham City supporter, we'll be locking horns next season as well. So that'll be interesting. Mate. That'll be interesting to see. Ben, thank you for being a marvelous guest. If any of our listeners would like to follow you or get hold of some of your work, where can they find you?
They can find me at my website's www.benmosleyart.com. Where you'll be able to see lots of football-inspired pieces. I was fortunate enough to meet Sir Geoff Hurst. He actually bought one of my paintings. So you'll see, you might see a photo of me and him on there. His 4th goal against Germany, and he's a lovely man is Geoff. Really, really fit, very healthy looking. He looks better than I do. I'm 42. So he's brilliant. That was an honor, obviously, to meet such a legend, and so humble as well, considering who he is. And so yeah, and Instagram is at Ben Mosley Art, and Twitter is at Ben Mosley Art, so they can find me there if they want to check out my stuff. And like you said, Phil, art's subjective, so hopefully somebody will be able to take away what they can.
Well, mate, I certainly, when I saw it, it really kind of called out to me your art. It's fantastic stuff. So, guys out there, if you like football, if you like art, you've found your new favourite artist. I certainly have. Thank you for being on, Ben. Thanks for taking time out.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. It's great.
You said before we came on, you got commissions to do. I'm going to let you get back to those now. You got to bang one out before tomorrow. You said so. So let's crack on, mate.
Thanks very much, Phil. No, it's great. It's great to be on your show, and all the best. And I hope you enjoy the Euros, and let's hope England bring it home.
Come on, let's do it. Thank you for being on Football Geeks tonight, Ben, and we'll see you next time for more fantastic chat and great guests. See you next time.